Welcome. This is the podcast series on living a revenue culture. We learned during the pandemic that the only way businesses survive is to continually produce more profitable revenue.
Right.
And the way they maximize profitable revenue is by first optimizing a people-first culture. Our guest today is Alice Heiman, and Alice is somebody I've known for a long time and have a great deal of respect for. She brings a new spirit to her CEO clients and to their sales organizations that not only help them grow sales, but help them skyrocket the actual business value. According to Forbes.com, Alice is a diligent student, a teacher, and she teaches people what works. She's among the world's leading experts in complex sales, has her own podcast series on sales talk for CEOs. She's written hundreds of articles, and her skills are a mix of strategy, action, and results. Welcome, Alice.
Thank you. We have known each other a long time. I was just thinking, Rick, how long have I known him? It's back to my early Vistage days. I think I met you in the 90s. So we are getting up there.
Yeah, you look a lot better at it than I do, but it has been a while.
Well, yeah, we've known each other a long time, and we've both been kind of working at the same thing, really helping companies understand their revenue and how people impact their revenue, not just the people inside their companies, of course, but the people outside their companies as well, and how they can better interact with those people and provide exceptional experiences, that people really want to have so that they stick with them internally and externally.
Amen. And one of the things I've admired about your work is you really connect to a big network of global people.
Yes.
I see you at conferences and talks and all that type of thing. So, that's an area I don't get into too much, is the global part of it. So I'm hoping we'll get to hear about some of that today.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's fun to keep a global network going. And it's been so helpful, not just for me, but for my clients as well, because I have those connections and can use them strategically.
So share with us, we have known each other for a while, and I've always admired your practice because you've been very focused on what you want to do and who you want to do it for. So share a little bit about, what you've done over the years and how you got to where you are today.
Well, people always ask me, like, what drives you, what lifts you up, why do you do what you do? And for me, it's been the same for as long as I can remember. I really just truly care about lifting others up. And right now in my world, that's about lifting CEOs up so that they can be their very best in terms of running their company, but focused on the revenue piece of that. And prior to, going into business, a lot of people don't know, but I was a public school teacher, and my goal was the same then: lift those students up so they can be their best selves, and help lift their parents up to be the best supporters of their kids that they could be. So it's just something that I truly think about every day of my life. Am I being my best self, and can I help others be their best selves? And so in my work, after being a teacher, I went to work for Miller Heiman, which my father co-founded with Bob Miller back in the 70s when I was still in college. And after a while, my dad bought Bob Miller out. That was in the late 80s. And soon after that, instead of just asking me to do projects for him in between, on my summer break or my breaks from being a teacher, he wanted me to work for him full time. And I finally did agree to go do that. And so that's how I made that leap from elementary education into the corporate world. So that was, like a big new world for me back then. And at that time, I found Vistage and met you because I needed help. I needed to learn from other people who were doing what I was doing in the corporate world. And I had never lived in that world before. So I found being in a Vistage group was so helpful. And then meeting people like you was amazing because it really broadened my scope and understanding. And in that time that I worked for Miller Heiman, of course, I did become an expert on the complex sale. And I did work with some of the world's largest companies, all of the Fortune 100, Fortune 50 companies. And I learned a lot there as well. And then when I left and started my own company in 97, I took all of that I knew and applied it to smaller owner-led companies that had investors who were selling to those Fortune 100 companies and help them use that to increase their revenue and their valuation because they had investors. And I love doing that so much. And I've been doing it really ever since. I love focusing on these companies under 100 million that are trying to double in size, increase their revenue, increase their valuation. And they're selling to companies that are 10 to 100 times their size. And they have very complex problems that they solve, high dollar stakes, lots of people involved. It's pretty exciting.
I have to ask this wasn't on our agenda, but now you reminded me about being a school teacher. What do you see as similar between teaching and the consulting you do now?
Yeah, I think that in both cases, it's about solving problems. You know, when I was teaching, I was a special ed teacher. And I think this is true for all teachers, but especially when you're working with special needs children, you have a complex problem that you have to solve because you can't fix how they got where they are, right? Like you can't make them better. You can't fix whatever it is. So you have to take them from where they are and move them forward. And for every child, that's going to be different because they're a human and they're different, right? So you have to find a path that works for them. And if you don't, it's an uphill battle. And it's just, you know, a serious tug of war. So it's a challenge to figure out for each child how to move them forward in a way that they can understand and accept. So they're not pushing back against you the whole time and inhibiting their own learning further. And I think with sales, especially with anyone in sales, but especially the leaders of sales and the CEOs, we have to move them forward from where they are. And they may have a very old way of thinking about sales and revenue. They may have, you know, seen some things work in the past and believe that those will still work now, but they will not. So they need to learn new things. But again, each individual human has to learn it in the way that they learn best. And I can't just force it upon them because they're not going to take it, even though I have credibility and they might believe me, they still may not understand it well enough to be able to take the information and really move forward with it. So I get that challenge of figuring out how I can move each individual CEO or sales leader forward. And my experience doing that as a teacher, I think has really helped me because especially as a special ed teacher, because I had to really learn about behavior. How do you change behavior? What motivates behavior? What demotivates behavior? And how you get someone to buy in, right? And make it their own choice to make the change. And some people call that change management.
Yeah, that's hard. As I was listening to you, one of the things that kind of clicked for me was having actually, my first wife was a special needs teacher also. And environment was a lot of it for the kids. You know, you could do all kinds of interesting things at school, but there was weekends and they go home and, you know, their milieu and so on and so forth. And business, that's why we got focused on culture, because culture has that same kind of environmental impact. And as you were talking about, something used to work for us and maybe it was never the right idea, but it worked. You were in a bubble or, you know, things were just perfect or terrible competitors. And, you know, now we have to change
Yeah.
And there's that fear of give up the
Yeah.
old stuff and go to the new stuff. And, um,
Right.
that's hard.
Well, and I think that what you said about environment is really important because it's not just true for children, but it's true for adults. Everything about our environment impacts our performance, right? So leaders that don't get enough sleep, it impacts their performance, whether they want to believe it or not. Being in a toxic environment with people who don't treat people very nicely, or who are maybe putting people down or being passive aggressive, or maybe they're just exhibiting behaviors that are not cooperative in any way. Being in that kind of toxic environment impacts all of our productivity. Being in an environment where there's very little diversity can impact our productivity. There's so many external things. And so we want to just be like, oh, this is business. It's all about revenue and it's all about sales. And I'm just going to focus on that. But every single thing around you in your entire company can impact that, including your own behavior and your happiness or unhappiness, your tiredness from lack of sleep, or your fitness level from lack of exercise. All of those things impact whether your company is going to be successful or not. Thus, culture, right, becomes extremely important and plays a huge role in driving revenue.
Yeah. And, the other one is inside your own company. My undergraduate degree was accounting, so I learned to speak accounting, and you go into a business now and I speak accounting, but somebody over there speaks marketing.
Right.
Somebody over there speaks engineering.
Right.
And now in today's world for revenue, we can't let these languages be unique anymore. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's right. I think that for a very long time, we've lived in silos. And I think that corporate America was kind of built that way. It's like when companies were small and they first start back then and now, everybody does everything. And, as we grow, sometimes we look back at those days and really miss them because we were all communicating, and I didn't talk accounting or marketing, or I just talked to get it done. Like, let's all work together and get it done. So, but as we specialize more and more and see the need for specialization, we do talk marketing or customer success or finance or operations, and never the twain shall meet. And that's the part that has to stop, right? So I get over here in my marketing silo, and my sales silo is doing this, and my marketing silo is doing this, and the marketing, I want to stay in my little marketing silo and I don't want to make any changes. But sales has changed so much, and buyers expect an omni-channel experience. I don't know if you read that article that Jennifer Stanley wrote with her colleagues from McKinsey on the omni-channel B2B experience, but it's right on. The research is right on. And what they're saying, is that our customers do expect that omni-channel experience. And in order for us to provide that to them, we have to work together, and we cannot stay in our silos any longer. It just doesn't serve our customer in any way whatsoever. And here we are as a CEO saying, I want to drive revenue. Well, that's great. If you want to drive revenue, you need customers. And those customers need to have a great experience. Their customer experience has to be exceptional. It can't be okay, because they'll go elsewhere. It can't even be good, because lots of your competitors can give them a good experience. You have to go beyond that and give them something exceptional, something that they really want and can't live without because it's so special. So we have to think about that. And, my favorite question to ask, Rick, is what are you doing to make it easier to be your customer and harder to be your competitor?
Well, I noticed in doing a little research on you, it came out, one of your areas of focus is selling the way buyers actually buy.
Right.
Share a little bit about that. I mean, that sounds like it's right in line with the article the research you were just talking about.
Well, here's what's funny. During COVID and even before that, I would hear different experts, thought leaders saying things like, "Oh, we have to be more empathetic. We need to map the customer journey." Like this is something new. It's like, hi, I'm a human being and I would like to be treated like a human being. Doesn't that require empathy? Hasn't that always required empathy? So sometimes I just giggle at these people like this is a new concept, the buyer journey. The buyer has always taken a journey. Maybe you didn't recognize it. And, way back when you and I were young and we were selling, let's face it, the journey was different because they depended on you and me to show up and share what we could do for them. They had no other way to get that information. They either had to talk to one of us on the phone, right? Or they had to, maybe we mailed them a catalog if we sold goods, right? Or there was no internet. So they either needed to talk to me or read something that I sent them. There was no other way for them to get the information. So of course the buyers were much more open to that because they had no choice. Now they have many choices. And that customer experience becomes, just the most important thing. So you have a company, you started it for a reason. You may be 1 year old or you may be 25 years old in your company, but you still have the same responsibility to serve, right? You built this company to serve, to supply something to those who need it. And if you want to be successful or more successful than you are today, you have to look at those people who are most likely to buy what you have because they have that need or that challenge or that area they want to grow in. So that whatever you serve up provides that to them. You have to know them really well. You have to know where they live today. They don't read the newspaper anymore. That's for sure.
Don't even have one.
Right. They don't even have one. So they're on some channel, are they watching YouTube? Are they on TikTok? Are they on, LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever? Where are they? Right. Do they go to shows? Do they not go to shows? Do they do online things only? Like you've really got to know where do they show up and where are they looking for the people who can solve their problems? And you have to be there. And not only do you have to be there, you have to be there with the right message, right? In the right mode. And that means since we don't know what that is all the time, we have to be on every channel they're on and provide something to read, something to listen to, something to watch, right? And we have to be ready to respond. So, we want them to talk to a salesperson, but maybe they don't want to talk to a salesperson. The Gartner research tells us that something like 40% of B2B buyers today would prefer a seller-free experience.
Exactly.
So if that's true, then what are you doing to make it easy for them to be your customer and not have to talk to a seller? Now, I know in a complex sale, especially because that's all I deal with is complex sales, at some point they're going to have to talk to a human to make it all happen, but it could be a subject matter expert. I've got some clients who don't have any salespeople anymore. They only have customer success people, and it's a whole different process, right? And the customer has found what they need along the way to help them on this buyer journey that they've always been taking anyway. But now we have to meet them where they are. And since we don't know and we're not going to be there in person at that moment, we have to provide other things. And so companies who have websites, and this is many companies, they have websites, you go on them, you cannot figure out what these people do. You cannot figure out their pricing. You cannot find a video that explains their product. You cannot find the information you need. Well, you're going to be passed over. They're going to go find your competitor. So I think that customer experience and selling to the buyer in the way that they want to be sold to, right? Helping them buy, guiding them, right? And providing great insights and helping them, collaborate on the best solution and choose the best solution is the only way that we're going to win today. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of transactional sales still going on because people need what you have and they can't get it elsewhere. But is that really what you want? If that's the case. And in most cases, it's more complex than that. You really need to start moving towards that, providing that exceptional customer experience.
Amen. Couple of things just jumped out of that. One, I'm a big history fanatic, and today there must be 6 books that talk about the fact the world changed about 150 years ago. And, that's all those things you talked about that, where the only information came from some big company that sent you and I out with literature, that lasted 150 years until Google got here.
Right.
And then that changed. But so many things that we did for 10,000 years, we're back to. We're back to, I only want to deal with people I trust.
Right.
And it's transparent, so I can figure out who I trust. And,
Yes.
People argue about, well, anybody go back to the office? Well, 150 years ago, nobody went to the office.
Right.
So we did that okay for 10,000 years. So probably we can figure it out again. And then the other one that you were talking about that's so powerful is purpose. That our organizations have some purpose.
Right.
And, if you kind of use Simon Sinek's infinite game,
Yeah.
if you have an infinite purpose, you attract a different group of employees, you attract a different group of customers. And, if you're only going to do finite stuff, we use the term mercenary. It's okay to be mercenary, but mercenary short-term typically, and it's typically bubble fulfillment. And, and that's an okay thing to do, and you can make some money, but recognize someday it's just going to stop.
Right.
And you have to decide which of those. And what I think people don't get is how important that purpose is, because if your employees embrace your purpose and are personally fulfilled when they're helping to deliver the value from that purpose to your ideal client, you've got a wonderful world to live in.
Right. Right. Well, as a CEO, Rick, what we have to be so focused on, I said this a little bit earlier, I touched on it. We have to be concerned about the experience that people are having internally and externally, right? So our first customer are those who come to work for us or with us, right? We attract them to come in, and then we want, especially these days, to retain them because it's hard to get good people. Some of them we don't want to retain, but most of them we do, and we need to do a good job of that. So we really need to look inside first and see what's happening inside our organization. Do we have a culture that will promote the revenue growth that we really want? And a lot of times, I have CEOs walk around the company and ask people, what role do you play in sales? And they'll say things like, oh, I'm not in sales. I don't have anything to do with sales, or, oh, yeah, no.
Yep.
Right. And so that's interesting, right? Now, of course, it's a little bit of a trick question because they're not in sales, but if we've built the right culture for revenue generation and we care about our people and they know that, they will say things like, I make sure the salespeople have everything they need on that tablet when they leave every day so that they can serve our customers really well. Or I make sure that when I call the customers to collect from them, I'm as kind as possible about doing that so that the salesperson doesn't have a hard time the next time they go visit them to buy something, right?
Yeah.
Or if I'm in operations, I say, I make sure the delivery of our product is exceptional, that it's on time, that it's correct, and that if it's not, we're proactive, not reactive. We're letting people know. So everyone in the company should know that they have an impact on the revenue because they can either make it or break it. If I sell a multi-million-dollar deal and my team cannot deliver on it, I probably won't get another one of those.
Well, and the other part of that analysis, if if you sell the $10 million deal and it's intended to be delivered in 12 months and it takes 18,
Yeah.
we just pushed the revenue out an additional, we pushed it into next
Right.
year. And we also used the capacity of our organization on 6 months
Yeah,
that we didn't get paid for.
that's right.
So
That's
when
right.
we, as the accountant in me says, from a revenue standpoint, those people are as important as the people who got the contract signed. Because if those people don't deliver on their part, the contract never gets fulfilled and we
Yeah.
never get paid. So,
That's right. That's right. We have to make sure everybody understands what it means, revenue means. Like at one of my clients, we talk about bookings and we talk about revenue. Why? Because they're different. Great that the salespeople booked all this, but of course it all won't come in this year. And so we can't recognize the revenue. Now, what
Right.
can anyone else in any other department do to make sure that we can recognize the revenue on time? That's a whole nother story. And I think when we say sales, we need to stop thinking about sellers,
yeah,
because usually when we say sales and everybody thinks about the sales team, the sellers, the people who lead the sellers, and them going out, right, and being the force that brings our message to the customer. But we need to stop thinking that way. When we think about sales, we need to think about the way the customer buys and how our entire organization maps to that. And there was an interesting group that a company that Brent Adamson at Gartner interviewed, and I think they worked with them as well, who completely switched the way that they interface with the customer. They took down all their silos. No one was in marketing anymore. No one was in sales. Everybody just worked for the company. And what they did was they remapped what your specialty was at the company, what you did, to how the customer buys, right? And so it became more of an infinity loop,
yes, yes,
right?
yes, yes, yes.
Than a process that goes, and no, I mean, no selling process goes in a straight line. It may be the way we depict it sometimes. It doesn't go that way, right? And so when we think about, the customer journey, it starts at hello,
Oh, or
and it
before.
doesn't end at sign on the dotted line.
Right.
It ends at, I'm now your loyal customer, continue to buy from you. I'm a walking advertisement for you, and I would introduce you to anyone that you'd like to be introduced to, right? So that's not really an end, it's a loop.
Yep.
Because what we're going to do here is we're going to say hello, you're going to find us, you're going to know we exist, you learn more about each other, we're going to do business together over and over again, I hope. And you'll be so pleased that you did business with me that you will continue to do it and be happy
Absolutely.
to tell others. Now, that's a customer journey, right? And everybody in an organization impacts, because if every time you collect a bill from me, I have to talk to your irritating, accounting person, your collections person, that's not going to be good, right? Or if your attorney keeps changing the contract every time we buy something, that's not going to be good either. So they're impacting that buyer journey. And the CEO is the only person in the entire organization who has control over all of the pieces that touch the customer. So they have to be keenly aware of that experience.
Yeah.
So internally and externally, you have to have happy people who understand what you're up to, why you're doing it, how they fit in. And we have to keep encouraging them and applauding them when they do provide that exceptional experience internally and externally.
As you're talking, I'm imagining one of the things we work with a lot is helping sellers recognize real value transfer. And oftentimes people think of value transfer as, well, I either saved them money or I sold them a cool product, and that should be it. But in those relationships you're talking about between the buyer and the seller, when the seller is recognizing how the buyer really wants to buy, there's a whole lot of additional value being transferred in ease of use, no fear, I trust, you're with me for the long term, so I don't have to worry about the next transaction. There's this whole list. And the other one that sellers often get confused about is the buyer wants to hear about your value from their frame of reference. They don't want you to pitch them. They want you to help educate them as to how this really changes their world. So, it sounds like you run into the same kinds of scenarios we do all the time, and helping people think about it differently.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is a mindset switch for sure. And, it's any leader's fault if their salespeople are still out pitching, because somebody taught them to do that and you continue to let them do that, right?
Yep.
So we have to help salespeople understand how to have conversations, right? They have to have what we call authentic conversations, which means they've done all the homework they need to do to be prepared to have that conversation.
Yep.
And they want to and care enough, right, to really listen to the buyers, especially in the complex sale. You're going to have 5, 8, sometimes 12 people who you need to listen to and hear what they're saying and help them understand their own problem better. So you're trying to solve for X. Let's explore X together. Let me understand more about it. In my asking you these questions, I'm helping you understand more. So we have to get away from training salespeople to ask these very cursory questions about who's involved in the sale and what's the budget and what's the timeline and, here's our features and benefits. Which ones do you need? We have to move away from that to, you have this problem. Let me make sure I understand it well. In doing that, hopefully I'll help you understand it better. And then we can come up together with a solution. And in that, I can bring you some insights because I talk to lots of people like you, and I can tell you what their struggles were and how they fixed them. And you can see whether any of that might be useful to you versus doing it in a vacuum, right? And so if we can teach our sellers how to understand what a day in the life of their buyer is like, and then prepare to have an authentic conversation with them, we are equipping our sellers to do the right thing. Also, if we are saying to them, listen, when you understand their problem thoroughly, if we can't fix it, you be the first one to say, oh, yeah, we don't do that. We don't, or we can't do exactly that. Be honest about it and say, we absolutely, this sounds like we can fix it. Here's why. Or no, we don't do that. Or we can do a portion of it and we have a partner who does the other, but whatever it is, but not to try to sell something, close a deal because of the quota. And I know that's so hard, everybody that's listening out there. The pressure to meet your quota is so hard. It's like, oh, that downward pressure. But listen, CEOs, you need to know, close dates come from customers, not quotas.
Right.
And if we tell salespeople to sell stuff that they shouldn't, we have buyer's remorse, and that comes back on us in so many bad ways. So we have to be really careful what we're asking, and we need to think about sales differently. And if we do that, we know that the old quota system just simply won't work anymore.
Yeah, amen. One of the things that we do to try and get the selling part of the organization to think differently is we tell them never, ever, ever use the word demo. Because demo is about us as a seller.
Right.
But you can preview what the buyer's world is going to be like if you know the buyer's world well enough to do that. So your job is to get to know the buyer's world so well that you can help them preview how their world will change, not just transactionally, but by partnering together, how this is going to be significantly different over the next
Yeah.
3 to 5 years.
Right, right, exactly. So you have to know enough to share with them the things that make a difference. So they do need some sort of preview, right, of how it might work for them. But it has to be in that context. And,
Oh, yeah.
so many companies have a sales process that works like this. Somebody downloads something, somebody calls them, they try to schedule an appointment, then there's a discovery call, and we ask this typical, what I call BANT questions: budget, authority, need, and timeline, which who cares? It's like terrible. So we do this discovery call. Most buyers just won't stand for it anymore. They won't do it. They just won't accept an appointment because they don't want that done to them. So this way that we start off, and then if you're qualified, I'll give you a demo.
Yeah.
Okay, cut that out. If your company's doing that, just stop it right now.
Yes, 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 yes. Well, this has been wonderful, but I have to ask you now, tell me, and actually I want you to tell the people that are watching this who are running companies, what are the things that they should be paying attention to right now for the next couple of years? And also tell those people who are in the early career stages, they're trying to pick, who do I want to work for? And how do I pick the right place? What advice do you have for those two groups?
Well, I think for any CEO or anyone who's supporting a CEO, and helping to run a company, you need to be looking to the future. We can't, just be looking at now, or in many cases, it's like what worked 5 years ago. We have to pause and think about what we're doing, why we're doing it, whether it's working or not, how could we make it different, right? And we have to think not just for today, but for our company's growth 1 year, 3 year, 5 years from now. How will these same processes either help us or hurt us? And I say to you who are leading a company, just simply start by asking, what are we doing to make it easier to be our customer and harder to be our competitor? Because if you answer that, you'll probably find the answers, right? So if it's hard to find you when you Google, if it's hard to see how your product works without a human, right? If you have a chat bot, but they're only there from 8 to 5 on Pacific Standard Time or even Central Time, how does the rest of the globe buy from you? You're limiting your audience. I mean, really think about how people are buying. I mean, if I'm a busy executive and I need what you have and I'm tasked to go look for it, I'm probably doing it between 9 and midnight. Why? Because I work till 6 or 7, then I have dinner, I spend time with my family, put kids to bed or deal with whatever family thinks I have to do. And then I finally have some quiet time before I go to bed and I'm online looking. And guess what? You're not there. And the stuff I need to buy from you isn't there. And your chat bot is stupid. Or no one answers you and says, we'll be back tomorrow morning. Well, guess what? Tomorrow morning, I'll be busy. So really think about whether you're making it hard for your customer to buy or not, right? So that's what I say to the CEOs and young people out there. And I give this advice a lot because, as you may remember, I teach at the University of Nevada. I teach in the entrepreneurship minor, and I've been doing that for 20 years. I just do it very part-time-ish, but my students and my own kids, I always say to them, think about the things that are important to you and look for a company that represents that. So it's like, what kinds of things do you love? What do you love to do? How do you treat people? How do you want to be treated? And look for companies that do that. So you would look at lists of companies that rank as the best of whatever city you're in or want to work in. And today, of course, it doesn't matter because you can kind of work from anywhere, but look that up. Look up the industries that you're interested in and find out what companies rank at the top and what people say about them. And if you do get stuck in a company where the culture that you want isn't there, that's okay. Do your best and make a graceful exit when the time is right. Because it's really hard to change a whole company culture on your own. You're not going to be able to do that. So you'll have to find a new home where you fit better.
Those are great questions. And the interesting thing is those questions for the young person in the early part of their career, I hope the CEOs are listening. Because the things that those young people are looking for, give the CEOs a pretty good idea of how they need to organize their company so they end up with the culture that they actually want.
Right.
And the last thing, I'll just kind of tie a lot of what you said into some of the things we talk about all the time is today we believe that a real revenue culture is, of course, your shareholders are always there, your leadership is there, your current employees are there, but so are your future employees, and so are your partners and your future partners, and your ideal customers and future ideal customers, and the community you live in. So when you're figuring out who you are running a company, you need to remember all of those players have an impact on whether you survive or you succeed or you massively succeed. So that has a lot to do with it.
And this is why today, Rick, the online presence is so important, and so many CEOs overlook it and they focus on other things. And, of course you have to prioritize, but look at your own career page. Is it attracting the kind of people that you want to work for you? Are your core values clear as a bell? Do you have videos of customer testimonials and employee testimonials? Is your careers page attracting the kind of people you want? And is that same message out all over the internet, wherever those people might be finding you? And then the same for your customers. Look at your website. Is it built for your customers to have a great experience, or is it built to blah, blah, blah all about you and not take the way they want to buy into consideration? So you really have to look and see, how do we show up to the world? And is that attracting who we want? Because sometimes you attract exactly who you set out to attract by negligence.
Absolutely. Right? We train our customers. We just don't realize we're doing it.
Right.
And if we train them by ignoring them or insulting them or, showing them we don't care, then we've trained them. It's on us. So it's interesting. I'm listening to you, and I'm sure you've seen the same research as to the 10 resources buyers use today. And of the 10, one is past experience with you, and one is your salespeople, which is number 9 out of their 10. The other 8 are all digital.
Yes, that's right.
And,
all digital.
And if that's how they're making decisions, and 8 out of 10 are digital, and one's past experience, which you can't change, and one salespeople who they don't want to talk to, you better get good at digital.
Yeah. So, well, it's interesting because a lot of CEOs will say to me, when we have so much business doing it the way we're doing it, I'm like, well, congratulations. That's fantastic. Imagine how much more you could have.
Well, and, I would submit that if they have that, it's because their competitors are worse than they are.
That's probably true.
Or they're in a bubble. And, the book's Good to Great and In Search of Excellence, when you really step back, they studied companies in bubbles. That's why by the time the books were published, at least one company was gone out of the good ones and the excellent ones, because they were in bubbles and the bubbles burst.
Yeah.
And
so true.
So you better run a good company. I don't care how good you're doing today, because your competitors will quit being bad or your bubble will burst if you're not doing the things you're talking about.
Right.
So this has been great. This has been fun. So thank you so much. And for those of you watching us today, the podcasts come out 1 every 2 weeks. Our blog comes out weekly. We hope you're getting both of those. Alice's information's on the screen, so you have every way to get a hold of her, and I'd strongly suggest you do it. She's got a lot of great stuff, and hopefully we'll see you back here again. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.